2026 World Cup that is being hosted by 3 countries, Mexico, United States, and Canada. How has African countries, how have they fared? And to unpack this topic with me, I have with me Dr. Demolu Okuneye, a veteran sports journalist. Dr. Okuneye, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Dari Falari. Nice being with you.
And I also have with me a sports aficionado, Biodun Alabi. Biodun Alabi, you're welcome.
Good to be here. Thank you so much.
Yes, great. Let's hit the ground running. Dr. Okuneye, FIFA gave us 10 slots. Have we, as African countries, justified the 10 slots?
Well, I think that when FIFA gave us these slots, the Italian coach said that it was a waste of opportunities for nations across the world, because he had an impression that African nations are not the best when it comes to football. But then, 10 African nations featured in that competition. That enlarged, because for the first time, the number was enlarged. It wasn't only Africa that was given the opportunity. But at the end of the day, 9 out of the 10 qualified for the round of 32. And I think that was one rating that the African teams must be commended, because they actually justified that extension. And except for Tunisia, which actually failed to qualify from the group stage, the African nations were able to prove that, they are capable. And even after the round of 32, we still saw African nations still moving forward, and we were able to still see two qualifying. But those that were even eliminated at the stage of 32 actually proved their mettle.
Right.
They were able to show that Africa can never be pushed aside when it comes to football.
Thank you very much. Biodun, your initial thoughts?
Well, I think I agree with Doctor. Over the years, from 2 slots to I think 3, then we had 5, now 10. And out of the whole 10, we had 9. But of course, it's even beyond 9 qualifying for round of 32 for me. I think it's about the sensation that countries like Cabo Verde, created. Algeria, they were also faltered in the first few games, but they actually got themselves, together, and they managed to get to the round of 32. We saw Egypt too, Morocco. I think it was only Tunisia that didn't make it. So generally, for me, I don't think it was a wasted trip for African countries to the World Cup. I think they just have to pick it from there. What's going to happen in the next, because I don't see FIFA reducing the slot for Africa. What should Africa do with the next World Cup, given the 10 slots that they got in the last one, is what should be of major concern to us now.
Okay, is it an indication that African football had improved, that Nigeria did not even qualify to as one of these teams?
No. When you take a look at the performance of the teams that qualified, I think they justified that standard that the African football had actually improved. And when you take a look at even the performances of African teams in the past, we've always been getting to the quarter-final stage, but it has always been one team at a time, team at a time. And this time around too, that is what we have actually been able to achieve. But one thing that you must also take a look at is the number of Africans even playing for other nations. You take a look at a team like France, which is rated as one of the best, if not the best right now in terms of standard and then tactical approaches and everything. You cannot find less than 6 African players who are there in that team. And similarly, other nations came. Switzerland will be playing today. Switzerland has a number of players from Africa, including Nigerians, who are Nigerians too. And then other teams too. When you take a look at Belgium, who are they parading? Who are they actually relying on? They are relying on some great African players who are also there. So when you talk about performances and then the fact that as African football even improved or not, definitely I think it's a very fantastic way to say that we're actually proud of the performances. We will talk about Cape Verde the other time. Apart from Cape Verde, Take a look at how Senegal lost. Take a look at how even Cote d'Ivoire lost. Take a look at how Egypt lost. Take a look at, you see, it shows that, yes, we were there. Argentina would have been out by now.
Right.
But for some factors that actually still keep them there. And that's the defending champion. So if Cape Verde could actually stretch Argentina to that level, and Egypt too could also make even Messi to even cry after that match, then that shows that, yes.
Yeah, that shows that. So let's look at a pattern that emerged. You know, African teams will be leading, and towards the end, they will lose. It happened with us too in USA 94, when we played Italy, and we eventually lost. So is it a function of not reading the game very well, or is it a function of game management?
Apart from what Dr. Kuneye said in terms of the 11th African team in that tournament, I mean, African players in the diaspora who played for Fulani Balogun for the US. We also saw Nigerian players in the colors of Canada. Right. The flip side of whether African football has improved, as reflected in this tournament, the flip side is the poor game management of African teams. You know, and I've actually gone down in history to look at some upsets that recorded by African teams. Let me take you back to 1990. Argentina versus Cameroon. Cameroon scored their goal in the 67th minute of the game. In fact, they got 2 red cards.
Yeah.
So they were reduced to 9 men. Yeah. So 67 minutes, so they played for 24 minutes, you know, and they still managed to win the game. They were resilient against Argentina. They were still able to. So it tells you, then against Senegal, France in 2002, Senegal got their goal very early, 38th minute of the game, and they played for 60 minutes, and they were still able to hold on to the lead, and they eventually won the game. So I think there's a departure from that, from what we have seen, you know, between the generation of African teams that we saw in the previous World Cup matches and the ones that are seeing now. Which is why, for me, I think Africa needs to reinvent itself. I think the problem here is that we try to play European, you know, like Europeans, and we are no Europeans. If you look at the background of the teams that shown so well in the past World Cup finals, and the Cameroonian team that beat Argentina, they were a product of the Cameroonian league. Tonne Kalala, you know, Douala, and the rest of them. They were not players who were born abroad. You know, of the players of, probably their parents left their countries, they went to foreign countries and they had them there, you know, unlike now where we have a whole lot of African players whose parents left their countries in Africa, traveled abroad, and they had their so they were not particularly, they didn't have education of African football education. The education they have is the education of football of the country where they were born. So I think that's a difference, you know, because if you look at that, I mean, I don't think there's any criterion that you could use to say, okay, the African teams of the past generations who actually hold their own at the World Cup. Imagine scoring the first goal in the 30th minute of play, and you manage to still win the game. Compared to now, when African teams led, look at Egypt against Argentina, like 5 minutes, and they conceded 3 goals. So I think what Africa needs to do now is to go back and see what they could do to actually develop what is actually called African football, African brand of football that will confuse the Europeans. The Eagles did it in 1994. It was difficult pinning down, if it was difficult pinning down Yekini, it was easy for them to pin at Amokachi or Emmanuel Amunike or Finidi George. So that is where I think Africa has to actually work upon now, because it's not just for fun of it. If you have 10 slots and you go to a tournament as big as that and you can't go beyond the round of 32, get to the quarterfinals or semifinals. When we didn't even have this big number of slots, we still got to the semifinals. Morocco got to the semifinals. Ghana at a point too. I think 2006. I think they were in the semifinals too. They lost to Uruguay, you know, penalty shootout. So it's a lesson for Africa, you know, that we need to begin to come back home and you know, build our own. You know, the more we rely on playing like the Europeans, the more we continue to falter at this stage.
Okay, culture will always win strategy. Okay, so let's talk about the teams now. African team. In the World Cup without Nigeria, the other here described it as tea without sugar. So what should we do to make sure that at the next Mundial, Nigeria will qualify? What do you speaking to?
I think the major problem with Nigeria is our attitude to competitions. We love to make it like an emergency situation. In the past we have actually lost so many opportunities to actually qualify for some very important competitions. And the fact remains that we always look at things from a simplicity perspective, believing that oh no rival, we can always get it done. I guess to a stage when we feel that even others must even help us. Without others helping us, we will not even be able to manage it. And then it is, how serious are we when it comes to football management? Who are our managers, and how did they even approach it? Take a look at the way we started preparation for this World Cup. We had Finidi George, we had
Pesero.
what was this other?
Pesero came. Pesero.
No, even before. Okay, it was after Pesero that Finidi took over, and this guy again, the director of Eguavon took over, and you are just playing with the opportunities. And it took a very long time before we actually went for a good coach who was ready to turn things around.
So you suggest that we get a good coach?
A good coach? No, we must even be. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
No, if not for Chell, we would not have been where we even got to at that particular period. If not for the fact that the guy came and changed the situation, then our players, probably success gets into their heads. Some of them feel like big men, arriving for some matches, they come very late. Some even feel that they should feign injury because they feel that they are very important and they feel that it could be managed. They can always defeat when necessary. So there must be seriousness on the part of the management. There must also be seriousness on the part of the players, and there must also be seriousness on the part of the technical crew.
Okay.
In a situation where you even say Finidi George complaining about players, how could a coach be talking about it was because this player did not come? It was because just passing the box. Okay. It's not supposed to be.
It's not supposed
we should
to
take things.
Right. And I think away from that is something I've also seen over the years. I've seen that apart from the 90s, the Eagles have become a tournament team. Right. They are not particularly a team you can rely on when it comes to qualifiers, and it's simply because we import almost the entire 23-man squad, for a particular qualifier from abroad. In those days, even if Keshi was actually flying in, there was always a replacement for Keshi.
Do you think we should have a standing Super Eagles?
But that's also a reflection of our league.
Okay.
That's why I like what the NSC is trying to do now through the NFF, trying to make the league attractive. 1 billion naira for the winner of the title, 2 million naira minimum wage for the players, and because if we have a very attractive league, some of the best talents will stay back to play, and then in fact we'll have players from other countries like Ghana, like Cote d'Ivoire, Cameroon, that we used to have in the past, who will come to play in our league. So we are going to see some level of seriousness in the league, and with that we can actually say we have a standing home team, that could match the quality of any other African team. Look at how we've struggled over the years. We didn't qualify for 2 Nations Cup back to back. We used to take the Nations Cup as a birthright, for granted. Even the World Cup, we didn't qualify for the last 2 World Cups, back to back. So I see that as a reflection of the quality of players that we have. They come from abroad, and the only time that you get to see the best of this team, of the current generation, is when they are in a tournament situation. Maybe you put them together for like 3 weeks, so they bond.
But take a look at South Africa. All the players from South Africa
they play in the league. In the best team in South Africa at the moment, Mamelodi Sundowns. So it's a long journey. It's not just something that we can't cut corners with it. We must be strategic about it. Look at Morocco. The manager that took them to the quarterfinals was employed March this year. So it tells you of the transition. He was the former under-20, under-23 manager of the Moroccan national team. And so seamlessly, they just put him on the job, and look at what he did for them.
Okay, so as we begin to round off now, let's look at international politics and football. What do you have to say to this World Cup generally? Are there interferences?
We saw when one of our own was mandated to go and play in spite of having been punished. Yes, that's
Folarin
Balogun. And how was that even achieved? It was achieved as a result of interference from the president of USA, who actually felt at that particular period that this Nigerian or African was very important to USA. And as a result, Infantino was ready to even do anything. I think this is a very bad development when it comes to football, because it sort of exposed those traits that many had suspected in the past, affecting international football.
Okay, is it bad? You know, is football not part of politics?
No, I think we can't extricate politics from the game. I think it's for African countries to also learn it, even in terms of playing the game. Remember how we lost to Argentina in 1994? You know, the equalizer after Siasa scored, the free kick, all our players were still looking away, and you know, Madonna just threw the ball to Kanija, and the ball was at the back of the net. So we must also learn to really play up to our potentials. If you are playing against, I mean, we saw Morocco yesterday playing against France. You know, they are hot favorites for the tournament. So we didn't need any form of lethargy at all. You had to prepare, and for you to play at the World Cup stage, you must prepare. So African football management has to change, whether we like it or not. I recall 1994 Nations Cup, was it second round of 16, Nigeria against Italy. Roberto Baggio had injury, but the Italians did something. They did something on him and they made him play. If it was an African country, we would have ruled them out of injury completely. So the politics of the game go beyond the boardroom politics. Even on the field of play, you must learn it. And I think that's where Africa is falling behind.
As we go, do you think an African team can win the World Cup in the nearest future?
Well, from what we've been able to see, no, in the nearest, it is possible. Nobody expected Cote d'Ivoire to actually play the way they did. Did you see the way Senegal also played? And did you see even the Ivorians and the Egyptians? I was actually surprised that the Egyptians could stretch the Argentine. But you have spoken about something, international politics. To what extent can FIFA allow African countries to actually get there?
Can an African team
in terms of
I think Africa will have to do something. What's that? Sorry, I don't know, but we have to start now. We have to start now. We always leave the next World Cup to when it's going to start. You know, we have another World Cup in the next 4 years. The plan should start now for African countries, so that we can actually look at the possibility of us winning the World Cup in some years to come.
That's the.
But you know, the issue of commercialization is something that FIFA is always conscious of. With the sponsors, are they ready to allow African countries to win? That's a challenge.
Well, it is, but I think African countries also have to live up to expectations. Imagine if the Egyptians managed the game, you know, against Argentina. There was no way they would have won the game, you know. So I think there is still a thin line between management of the game in Africa and what we have in Europe.
Yes, it is often said that it's a learning curve. And Africa, we've been learning, and we hope that one day we'll win the World Cup. I'd like to thank you, Dr. Dimolu.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sports aficionado.
My pleasure.
That's the program for today. Until next week, when we come your way again with a fresh edition of the program, on behalf of the team led by Aki Okudero, this is Dari Folarin saying bye for now.